Welcome, everyone. My name is Jessica Weiss. I'm the program director of the Women in Energy Initiative here at the Virtual Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University. Thank you all for being here. A note that this event will be recorded, so please keep that in mind. And with that, we know that the job market right now is overwhelming and the market more generally is quite unstable. So we wanted to close out our programming. This is our final program, our 17th event of the school year. Close out our programming of the year with an event really talking about how to stabilize your career in a rapidly changing industry. When Claire and I first talked about this, we didn't really talk about it in terms of this insane time we're in. We more talked about it in the sense of the energy, sector is constantly changing and evolving, and how do you really have a stable career in that space? But I think it's very apt considering where we are. So I'm very excited to introduce Claire Steichen, who founded Clear Strategy Coaching in 2008 to help ambitious mid-career professionals reach their goals authentically and without burnout. Claire is also the author of Confidence at Work, the High Achiever's Guide to Navigating Uncertainty. And with that, I'm going to shut up and hand you over to Claire.
Thank you, Jessica, and welcome everybody. It's really great to be here, and it's great to be here at this particular time. We're all feeling a little bit of the strain and pressure of uncertainty right now. So what I'm going to do today is to share with you tools that I've really been using since 2008 and perfecting since 2008 with hundreds and hundreds of clients and groups. What I can share with you is that for 3.5 years during COVID, I was running a 6-week program with mid-career and slightly more senior professionals at Visa, about 120 people a year for 3 years. So what I talk about has been tested and perfected with a lot of people. So what I want to begin with today, just to get us grounded, and I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the nice, here we go. I'm going to introduce myself a tiny bit more in a minute, but what I would love to ask you all for now is to tell me either in the chat or if you feel comfortable saying it out loud, where are you right now in career? Are you in a great place and you're ready to go for promotion? Are you recently laid off? Are you feeling like you were dying to make a move, but you really can't because suddenly the market is flooded with people who have been laid off? There's a lot going on right now. So if you want to go ahead and put it in the chat, and please feel free to message me directly if you don't want to say it to the entire group. All right. That's part one. And then part two is always my favorite question. If this is the best hour of your week, what do you want to make sure to leave with? All right, this is the best hour of your week. What do you want to make sure to leave with today? And I'm going to check in on the chat in a couple of minutes. Let me start us off with where I want to go today. Okay. We have a challenge right now, is that during times of uncertainty, going to great schools, working at safe organizations, working really hard doesn't necessarily protect you from getting laid off, being passed over, feeling stuck in a job, or just feeling burnt out because you're afraid to leave, you're afraid to make a move, and you're actually incredibly burnt out. So the vision for today is that I want to help you take charge so that even in this chaotic time, you can stay on track, you can still think about fulfilling your ambitions, and you can start to think about balancing work and life. or not start to think about, hopefully continue to do that. But I know we all work a lot. So what is my background and why listen to me, I guess? My background is that I graduated Columbia Business School when I was about 26 years old. And at that time, I wanted to work in the beauty industry, and nobody was hiring in business schools in the beauty industry. So even though all my friends were going into finance uh, and consulting at companies that had recruited at Columbia, nobody had recruited me. And so I had an 8-month job search. It was grueling. I learned how to find a job. Then I had a bit of a blip, which is that I spent 3 years working at Lancome, which is part of the L'Oreal companies. And I realized within that time that I really couldn't stand marketing. It just wasn't for me, even though I liked the company, I liked my colleagues. And in a state of a fearful, uh, bad, I made a decision from fear. And I went to a job at Calvin Klein, and within 2 months, I was fired. So that was very stressful. I had to recover from that. And within my career, I've had two pivots. One time, I went from the client side in cosmetics to the supplier side, and I started working at fragrance companies. And then since 2008, that was my second pivot where I said goodbye to my entire corporate career, and I went for the thing that had always been calling to me since business school, which was to do organizational behavior, coaching, and the kind of work that I do today. Now, as you can see from this, I've had a few times in my career where I had to find a job, but most important of all, since 2008, I've essentially been on this like 17-year job interview where I'm constantly putting myself out there. And I think, for a lot of people, the idea of having your own business is like, oh my God, the income isn't steady. I don't get the paycheck every week. But that's not even the hardest part of it. The hardest part of it is that you constantly have to be willing to put yourself out there, to be visible, to expose yourself. And it feels extremely vulnerable. So, from that place, and I say all this because I want you all to know and trust that I know what it's like to be in your shoes, quite literally. Today, what I want to do is I want to, first of all, give you a plan, because one of the hardest things, whether it's job search, whether it's promotion, whether it's wanting to feel re-engaged at a job that you're not feeling good at, you need a plan. And it's the first thing most of my clients ask me is, Claire, just tell me what to do, right? So having a plan, knowing actually how to do an effective job search is number one. Number two is managing your time. And we're going to look at how to make your job search an important priority if that's where you are, or your campaign for promotion, or your intention to re-engage with your work. We're going to talk a little bit about networking and messaging, and then we're going to talk about how to keep things calm. So I'm going to stop the share, and I want to see what is in the chat. Okay, so we have a layoff and the desire to leave with a plan. Very good. We have a career transition. Yep, work in progress. We have interested in promotion and raise. Good, because of student loans. Want to leave with inspiration and a plan. Very good. Another layoff. It was awful. I'm sorry about that. It is awful. Great. So women in energy have really empowered you and made you feel good. So that's amazing. And you finally feel some security. Job loss is very hard. Okay, so federal government upended. Yep. Senior role. So for some of you, this is really the first time that you're in this position. And I see this all the time. This is a little bit the people that I specialize in is high achievers who have hit a bump and it's super unexpected because you followed the rules, you've done what you needed to do. Okay, so another one started a new job and it's not really going well, so you want to either stabilize it or consider a job hunt again. All right, great. So thank you for that. And let's go back to any questions at this point before we start? Thoughts, questions?
I guess I'll just say really quickly, for those of you just joined, I'm Jessica Weiss, I'm the program director of Women Energy, just that we have supports for folks as well. I will put our latest newsletter in the chat just in case you didn't get it. So I just want to make sure that in addition to this, we have other supports for folks who are job seeking. So I just want to add that. Sorry, Claire, go ahead.
No, I love it. Thank you. And I think I can ask you this, but I already know the answer. You know, if I say to you, what do you notice in the chats? And for me, the clear answer is you are not alone in this. All right. This is something. And what I love about group calls is that we get to realize that we are truly not alone. So please, as I go, if anything sparks your interest or sparks a question, please interrupt me and ask. If I'm going too fast, also just, put out a little stop sign or something and signal to me or shout out. All right. I don't mind being interrupted and I'm happy to do that. Okay. The first thing I would like us all to do together, and I'm not super woo-woo, I'm very practical, but let's take a few deep breaths, because what I know about this work is that when you are feeling uncertain about career, it is very stressful. So let's take a breath. Exhale and just put down all the worries that are out there. Another breath, and we're going to refocus on being together and being here to serve and help one another. And then just a third breath to calm the nervous system. It really does great things. Good. Okay. In my experience, both job hunting and having my own business, is having a plan, somebody telling you what to do and where you fit in is very powerful. The second thing is to then work that plan by managing your time. So there's tell me what to do and then create a plan, right? A calendar. The third thing, and you are already here on this call, so that is very positive. You want to get out there and you want to network. And this is one of the areas where I see people making a mistake, is that they think that networking only really happens when you get in front of the right people. But the reality is your friends and colleagues are the right people. You just have to give them the right messaging so that they can help you. And then the final thing is to regulate your nervous system. And I cannot overstate this enough. When you are dealing with stress like this, it's really important sometimes to just work on that. Okay, know what to do. Here we have my job search overview. And this is something that I created years ago because I had so many clients saying to me, Claire, how does the job search work? And there's a few things that I want to point out with this. The first thing is that you'll notice that the months here are 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 2 and 4, 3 and 4. It's not a perfect linear process. What will happen is that you might make some real progress in one area and then realize that you have to go back and redo some things to bring it forward. So it happens somewhat in a linear direction, but not entirely. What I do with clients first and foremost is to find out, what do you want to do and why do you want to do it? So what are your natural skills? I call this skill-based purpose. So what are you good at that really energizes you and that you kind of do without thinking about it? And this is very much in terms of not necessarily, I'm good I'm good at pivot tables in PowerPoint, or I'm good at working in cosmetics. This is really, what is the job functionality that motivates you? What are your interests? What are your values? And once you know that, you go to, where do you want to do that? And many of you are in the energy sector. Maybe some of you are thinking about a shift, but really understanding where you want to do that. And that comes from combining your knowledge with your historical knowledge, with your skills and purpose, and and the culture. Where do you want to do that? And so what you'll notice about this is that it becomes narrower. So what we're trying to do here is to go into the eye of the needle, okay? Because one of the biggest mistakes that I see people consistently make is that they say, oh, you know me, I work so hard, I'm open to anything. Or they go onto LinkedIn, they see a job description, and suddenly they start like, ooh, well, how could I like change myself to fit that job? So the first thing to do is to create a target. So once you have a target, which is, this is my job profile, this is the type of company that I want to do in my industry. Do you want to work at a large company, a small company? Do you want it to be international or domestic, regional, right? So a target might be, in my former world, I might say, I want to be a marketing manager and I want to do it at a smaller beauty brand. So I wouldn't be looking at L'Oreal, or unless I'm looking at some of their smaller brands, but I wouldn't be looking at the Estee Lauder companies necessarily. I would be looking at some of the independent beauty companies, right? So a target is a role with a job description at a group of companies that are very similar to one another. And the goal is to really, as crazy as it sounds, get 20 to 30 possible companies. And I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. Then what we're going to also talk about today is the impact statement. So what is it that you're good at, and what can you do for these companies once you get into them? And I'll say this again when we get to the impact statement, but you're thinking about using that impact statement, not just with the people you will eventually get to, but with your friends, because your friends can't help you until you give them something to say on your behalf. Then we get into the numbers game. So the numbers game, this is another place that I consistently see people make the mistake of putting on blinders and getting tunnel vision. So people get one hot lead, or they're up for promotion and they don't want to look at anything outside the organization, but they funnel themselves, and then suddenly, something doesn't go well. You haven't heard from the recruiter, you start to get nervous. They can feel your tension and your anxiety, and you start to sound needy to them. And then before you know it, the job is gone. So there's something very important about doing a job search as a campaign of many jobs. And for this, I advocate having an Excel spreadsheet where it has, I call it the company grid, where it's the company name, who's the president, who's the senior person in the function that you're after, and who are the key decision makers, and what do you see about them happening in the news? Or what, this is something I've actually been using AI for now, is what are the key concerns of the recently appointed CEO, right? So that's that. And then you get into the phase of interview and follow-up. And this sounds daunting and incredible to most people, but the goal is to generate and manage 6 to 10 conversations. And many of you are probably saying, I can't even get one conversation going. How am I going to get 6 to 10? The reality is, up to 4 to 6 conversations can easily blow up and disappear for reasons completely out of your control. Now, when I say conversations, I don't mean 6 job offers all at once. What I mean is, maybe you interviewed somewhere, it went really well, but they had to choose somebody else because it was an internal hire. But you stay in touch with them and you say, it was such an incredible experience. I really love the company or the organization. And, please keep me in mind if anything comes up in the future. And this is really the key to what they call the hidden job market. And if you want to learn more about this, there are a couple of great books. A colleague of mine in the Columbia community, his name is Ellis Chase. He wrote a book called In Search of the Fun Forever Job. It's not thick, but it tells you this process, essentially, his version of it from soup to nuts. Another amazing book for this is Through the Brick Wall by Kate Wendelton. And I don't know if she's still writing. The book is very old, so I don't really think it's in print anymore, but you can get more recent versions of it. The final thing, if you're more in the space of promotion than job search, I want to recommend a book by a woman named Carla Harris. She's incredible. If you ever get a chance to see her speak, she's fabulous. And she wrote a book called Expect to Win. And it's really about how to position yourself for promotion and how to become really active in your career management. Okay, final thing here is you see this manage your mindset. And this is probably the hardest part of it. And it goes up and down. You get a disappointment from a hot lead that you thought you were going to get, and it falls apart. And suddenly, it's like, oh, I'm back to zero. But here's what I want to tell you. Whatever you're doing, whether it is going for a promotion or finding a job, you do not go back to zero. You never do. What you're looking to do is build momentum, and that momentum builds with the experience and with doing the work of going through a job search, whether you have a disappointment or not. All right. The feeling is that I've gone back to zero, but you haven't. Okay. Have a plan and manage time. So many of you will have seen this. This is the Eisenhower matrix, often referred to as the important, not urgent matrix. And what it is that, on any given day at work, we have a lot of stuff to do that's important and urgent, right? So you want to schedule that. The mistake that many of us make is that we go into the not important, but urgent. So maybe your colleague or the person reporting to you is having problems, and instead of delegating it effectively, you kind of roll up your sleeves and help them, right? So suddenly it's important for somebody to do it, but it's not important for you to be doing it. What you have to try to do is resist going here and instead go here. So the way I want to say this, because it's so important, if you are actively managing your career, this lives in the space of important and not urgent, and you must schedule it. You must make it part of your quarterly goals. You must take the plan that I just showed you, or the system, and figure out how to break that into sub goals and actually schedule it. Because if you do not do that, it will always get, the can will always get kicked down the road. Get out there and network. And that's what you're doing here. And here is another calendar that I created a few years back. And basically it's the idea that, hold on, my little bar is in the way. There we go. So what is the goal? What is the activity that you want to do? And there are different types of activities when it comes to networking. So maybe you want to meet with a friend or a former colleague, right? Or a current colleague, and tell them what you're up to. Maybe you want to attend a networking event. I think 2 per week for a networking event might be ambitious, but maybe 1 every 2 weeks or 1 every 3 weeks. Maybe you want to do a warm call or an email with an intro, right? So what you'll notice here is that week 1, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to meet with Judy, my friend Judy, we used to work together. I'm going to attend a networking event, alumni club, and Jen's birthday. So I intentionally made that very casual because you want to be telling people what you're up to, and do not underestimate how much your friends can help you. Then we have a warm call or an email with an intro. Well, we don't have a warm introduction yet because we haven't met with enough people. But in week 2, maybe Judy has suggested somebody that we could reach out to. So Judy is saying, oh, you should talk to my friend Bill. And Dan might say, you should talk to, my friend Ruth. Maybe you hook up with somebody on LinkedIn that you do an introduction to that through somebody else. Exploratory meetings. So exploratory meetings are the kinds of meetings that are very important in a job search, where you might say, look, I don't see any job listings for your company on LinkedIn right now, but I love your organization and I would really love to meet with you because something might come up in the next 6 months. Okay. That is an exploratory meeting. You're looking to get on people's radars. So again, you're working on it, right? Not yet in week 1, working on it in week 2, because those don't come right away. But maybe in week 3, you are going to score an interview, an exploratory interview, not a job interview, with a VP at Makeup Inc., right? I made these up. And then what you'll notice down here is that there is constant follow-up. So week 1, the follow-up is Judy. Week 2, the follow-up is Tom and Dan. And by the way, if you've met with Bill, you're also going to reach back out to Judy and tell her how well it went. Okay. So I hope that this makes sense. I also want to say this is very, very condensed. This is happening very fast in this. I don't always expect. Typically what happens is this starts to look like this maybe after a month to 6 weeks of consistent outreach. All right. This doesn't happen right away. And then attending a networking event, as we all know, the summer is a little bit slower. So that doesn't happen with the same level of frequency. So maybe you want to do more coffees and things like that. Okay. I want to give you my formula for an impact statement. And what I also want to tell you here is that I'm going to make available to you some videos that I just created about this. So at the end, I'll show you how you can get that. But one of the big mistakes I said earlier is that when people underestimate how much their friends can do for them. And I will share with you an experience when I graduated college. I didn't have a job, and I did I did temp work. I went through temporary agencies and I did administrative work. And there was a pool of administrative people working, and I would always say, I want to become a perfumer. So at that time in my life, I had the goal of becoming a perfumer and creating scents and fragrances. And I knew about this through a girl that I'd been in college with, and I just thought it was so fascinating. So I went and told everybody that I want to be a perfumer, and nobody knew what I was talking about. But one day, one of the secretaries went into her boss and said, oh my God, can you believe this girl? She says she wants to be a perfumer. Have you ever heard of that? And he said, sure, I have. My friend Gus is a perfumer. Tell her to come into my office. And he introduced me to Gus. And 2 weeks later, I was sitting in a fragrance lab in New Jersey. So the point of that story is that the more specific you can be and the more memorable and repeatable your message can be, the more your friends can spread it for you. Okay? So what I call an impact statement rather than an elevator pitch. The elevator pitch is, oh, my first job out of college, I did this. And really, forgive me for saying it, but nobody cares if it's not important to them right now. What they want to know is, what are you good at and what can you do for me? And what is it about your experience that you want to highlight? You're not going to lie. You're just going to point them in the direction of the things that are most relevant to them. So what we're going to say is, let's say an example. This is a friend of mine who worked at ESPN. So he said, well, he didn't say this, but I made it up about him, as a strong researcher, which is a core skill, and I call that a skill-based purpose, with 7 years in sports media and an MBA. So that's actual learned experience. I'm now looking to help a private equity firm who specializes in sports to identify the right investment opportunities. So that is the impact, all right? So what you'll notice about this, it's a headline. It focuses on, this is the impact I want to make using my skills. And that is very important because people are very outcome driven, right? I asked you at the top of this call, what do you want to leave with today? All right. So a way you can sort of take it a step further is a formula that is very sales, very much from the sales world, is you elaborate the vision, right? So elaborating the vision says, I know that private equity firms are under a lot of pressure. Then you go into the risk. What does failure potentially look like? Because sports franchises that look good on paper can have hidden weaknesses, all right? Then you paint the picture of success again, but with thorough analysis that also leverages my instinct from years of experience, you can reduce risk substantially. And then you talk again about what it is that you bring to the table. So this stuff comes naturally to me. I love research. I'm very detailed, and I was at ESPN for 7 years, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Now, this doesn't all, basically, the first headline is what you say at the beginning of a cover letter or in the beginning of a conversation. And if the person is hooked and is interested, then you go into what I call war stories. So these are supporting evidence. And what's important about this is to have 5 or 6 of these in your back pocket. The mistake a lot of people make is that they take their long list of war stories and they put it in their quote unquote 90-second pitch, which quickly becomes an 8-minute pitch because it takes a long time to tell stories. But what you do is use the first part as a headline. And then if the person is interested and wants to learn more, you begin to talk about some of these things that are evidence of why you're good at what you do. Okay. Let's talk just a little bit about regulating your nervous system. So we all know, and these are, you cannot underestimate these during a job search or during periods of insecurity. You need to exercise. You need to be in nature. You need to see your friends, go to the museum if that's what you love to do, go to the theater, do what you love to do, maybe get the inexpensive seats at the top, but go and do the things you love to do. One of the most powerful tools I love to use is what I call appreciative inquiry. And I'm going to say this exercise to you right now. When things are very intense for me, I pretty much do it every day. But when things are more calm, I do it every week. And what I do is I look at my calendar for the week that just went by. So usually do this Friday afternoon. And I say, okay, what are the like 3 to 5 accomplishments that I did this week? And those can be quantitative. Maybe you reached a sales goal. Maybe you had an interview or went to a networking event. Or they can be qualitative. Maybe you got a win because you finally had a really good conversation with somebody that you had been introduced to. All right. So write down those 3 to 5 things. And for each one, you're going to answer the following questions. What was the accomplishment? Why is it important? All right. And this can be for a lot of different things. It can be important because you wanted to get in front of that person. It can be important because it built your confidence. Number 3, what would further progress look like? So maybe you met a key person at your target company, and further progress would be to have an official introduction where you could actually go to the organization and have an exploratory interview. Or maybe further progress would be that you would have the same kinds of conversations with 3 of that company's competitors. All right. And then final thing, what, if any, are the immediate next steps? And this often populates your to-do list. So maybe the immediate next steps are to pull out a list of competitive companies, or maybe the immediate next steps are to write a thank you to the person who introduced you to this person that you had a successful interview with this week. All right. So that is the appreciative inquiry exercise. I cannot tell you how powerful it is when things feel uncertain to be reminded. It's a version of the gratitude exercise, except you are taking credit for the good work that you're doing. Okay. And even if it doesn't feel like you're making progress, still take credit for what you did. And then finally, put it down. This is something I've learned as my daughter's been applying to colleges. Sometimes the stress is very intense, and you think like, okay, I'll calm down once I make this decision or once I get this done. But the reality is our nervous systems don't work that way. Sometimes we have to put it down so that we can regain our creativity, our reasoning ability, so that we can, rest our tired systems. And once you then regain, and this might be 2 hours, it might be a day or a day and a half that you put it down, whatever it is, your job search and once you pick it up again, you will be able to deal with it with much more creativity, many more internal resources. So that's a very powerful tool. Okay, so that's where I am so far. I want to stop and take some questions because in some ways, I wanted to focus on a lot of tactical things today, but the deeper stabilization of your career really comes from understanding what you're good at, what you bring to the table, and understanding how to use your talents in different situations. And I hope we have time at the end to do that, or in a few minutes, but I want to take questions first and just get a pulse of where you are.
I've got a question. I'll jump in.
Yep.
Hi, Claire. Thank you for what you've presented thus far. Here, let me put my video on.
There you
Hi,
are.
I'm
Hi,
Ebony. And thanks for those who put information in the chat. That was really helpful too. My question is about you said something about don't sound needy.
Mm.
And so can you talk a little bit more about that? I think one of my concerns is I think I'm naturally sort of upbeat and energetic, which I think is a good thing. But I guess I'm concerned that leaning into the passion, leaning into the energy might feel needy. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about maybe the distinctions between like being confident and energetic and eager, but not being needy.
Yeah. So you really picked up on that word in my presentation. So I guess my question to you is, have you experienced that sort of dynamic before?
I'm not sure. Well, actually, many, many years ago, through my networking, found myself in this sort of internship experience, which was amazing, in a completely different field. And I remember talking to one of the assistants who was sort of in a position that seemed like a great position that I would aspire to. And I remember him saying like don't be so eager, And at the time, I mean, this was like more than 20 years ago. I didn't quite get it. All these years later, now that I'm in the position that I'm in now, where I've resigned, I resigned last summer. I made that bold choice. I felt very empowered by that. It's been 8, 9 months now. And as I said, it's a work in progress. I had a conversation with a friend or, you know, a budding associate is what I really should say. This was a fellow mom. It was one of those conversations where I didn't recognize that I needed to be on. You know, I wasn't in front of the right person. I wasn't at a job interview or an exploratory. I was talking to a peer, and something went wrong in that conversation. And I'm not sure what it was. It could have been the needy factor. I don't think I was coming off needy. I thought I was coming off as like, we're really gelling. Um, we have a lot in common. This opportunity came up and I showed excitement, and then something changed. So that's why.
Did you ask her for an introduction? Did you?
Potentially she had this opportunity. She was actually going on a tour of something, and I thought, you know, we discussed it, and then at the end I thought I casually said, like, if there's an opportunity to attend with you, it would be great to attend, and I could like be your assistant and just take notes or whatever. And
And
in
she
the
shut off
moment,
then.
sorry,
She shut off then.
potentially, you know, it wasn't immediate. She seemed excited, but in terms of what the follow-up should have been afterwards, it wasn't that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So Ebony, often in these calls, it comes up where like I want to have a separate conversation and hear more, but just at the top, and I'm going to say, probably many of you on this call can relate to what Ebony just said, right? It's this like, oh my God, what just happened? So I'm going to say, my guess is that you're 20 years out from when this colleague said to you, don't be too eager. You have been eager. You have so much energy. I can't imagine that eagerness has led you in the wrong direction, right? If anything, it's shown people your passion and your enthusiasm, which has been good in your career in general, hasn't it? Yeah, it's who you are, right? So I would say don't stop that. Be yourself. You have a lot of energy, and that's really positive. Um, One of the things that I think, so a couple of things. This is why I was talking about the numbers game. You don't know when something goes sideways. You don't know what's going on in that woman's life and why the thing you said to her triggered her. It's so hard to know. And so part of what is so challenging for most people in a job search is that they want to just talk to 3 people and be done. And it doesn't work that way. It's a long process. Job search it's a process of building momentum. I call it being in play. So my first answer to you is don't sweat it. Let it be what it was, right? Like Mel Robbins says, just let them. We don't know why, but go find more people to talk to. So that would be my one. The other thing where I think people, and I just saw this with a client recently who had reached out to somebody, and she people only have a certain amount of political capital at work or in a given situation. Maybe she was attending this event and she felt not that stable herself going to that. So having you come along would make it even like, ugh, I don't feel like I have enough social and political capital in this situation to help somebody else. And I think a lot of people write to people thinking, oh, you're going to help me, but that person is trying to hang on to their own job. They're not in a position to be advocating for somebody else to come into the organization, right? So there are so many reasons that do not have to do with you, your talent, your approach for why that person might not be in a position right then to help you. Which is my long-winded way of saying don't take it personally, right? It may have had nothing to do with you, Ebony. You strike me as someone so engaging that I would say just go find another 5 people to talk to for now. And maybe at some point you'll understand. But, and this is part of the, sorry, I'm going to stop. I talk too much. So how does that sound as a response?
I appreciate it very much. Thank you. I have said that to myself, in not as eloquently, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, good. My pleasure. Anybody else? It's a lot of content that I gave you, so if it feels overwhelming, don't be shy. Okay. Go ahead, Dominique.
Oh, yes. Hi, let me see if I turn on my video. I'm sitting outside, so hopefully there's not too much background noise.
No, it's all good.
I just, well, I'm very interested in us kind of going through the exercise of defining or how to define our own strengths. So if that's what we're doing next, I'd like to save time for that, but if not, I just wanted to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So that is what we're about to do. All right, so let me jump into that, and then hopefully, now keep in mind, everybody, that I am offering this to you as a concept. We're not going to have time to do the whole exercise. It's typically an exercise that would take several hours to do at home, but I'm going to give you the exercise. Okay, good. Now, there we go. Okay, so there are a couple of things, couple of places to begin with this. So I do this exercise with clients, and what I'm going to propose to you, I'm going to give you all my email at the end, and I want you to please write to me. I will send you the peak experience exercise. I'll do it in a group email with everybody on blind copy. So one of the ways to figure out what you're naturally good at, what I call your skill-based purpose. It is where the things that energize you, and really importantly, the things that don't feel like work. And I'm going to say that the place where we have the greatest impact are in the areas that don't feel like work. And it's why we don't see them. And it's why we undervalue ourselves, because we don't really understand what it is we bring to the table. So I do this peak experience exercise. And in the exercise that I'm going to send you, I'm going to ask you to do find 20 peak experiences. And probably when I say that right now, you're going, oh my God, I haven't won any awards. We're not looking for those kinds of experiences. We're looking for simple things. Like for me, when I was in high school, for 3 years after school, I scooped ice cream at Baskin-Robbins. And I loved that job because I love dealing with the public. I love connecting with people. Later on in my life, I taught interview skills to high school students, loved it. And then even after that, I taught ski school to little 5-year-old kids in Vermont as a part-time thing on the weekends. So there are common threads in these, which are, I love people. Do I love the outdoors? Yeah, I like the outdoors, but I don't want to be, a forest ranger. I want to teach. I want to connect with people. It's what I love to do. So what I want you to do right now is to think about one moment where you were lost in what you were doing. Maybe it was at work. Maybe you were part of a team. Maybe it was something you did on your own. It could have been, bookkeeping and accounting, or it could have been presenting in front of an audience. It doesn't matter. It's just, you think about that. So I'll give you another 15, 20 seconds because we're moving fast. And then if you've already started answering these questions, go ahead. What were you doing? Who were you with? What motivated you? And this can be an interesting thing because some of us tend to be more motivated by the things we want to do. And some of us are It's not that we're pleasers, but we really are motivated when we are asked by somebody to do something. What did you learn? Can be an interesting question just to explore. And then the last two, what role did you play? Does not have to be the job title. What I mean by the role is, were you the one researching? Were you the one who was playing the diplomat between two people who were struggling to get along? Were you the cheerleader that maybe kept a startup team on track, even though it was very stressful? All right, so what role did you play? And based on that, what was your impact? Now, normally I'd love to give you a few minutes to do this, but I want to get to the next slide, so I'm going to let you do that on your own time. The next slide is to think about, so we've talked about how your strength-based purpose, your strengths essentially, show up in times that you really enjoy. This exercise is about taking that and then saying, well, there's a ripple effect to that. It's not just that, if I'm good at connecting with people, it's not just that Jessica likes me to do presentations. It's that, or that's a bad example. It's a great example, Jessica, but it's not for this. Maybe my sales team, wants me to do presentations so the client is happy, they feel connected and important and everything goes well. But what if we're a software manufacturer? And because I'm so good at connecting with the client, I can find out what they really want, and I can find out where they are frustrated with the glitches in our software. And then I can take that to the software design guys, and they're going to be able to create something better. All right. So then we make a better product, we get more repeat business, and we expand our business. So even though in some ways I'm not naturally good at software design, I'm not thorough the way they are, but I still have a ripple effect, not just in presenting directly to the client, but in actually informing the design team. So this is where I want to make sure any questions that come up, and I want to say about that, the key things to take away today are, where does the stabilization come from? It really comes from understanding what you are good at and understanding how those things can be applied in different jobs. So right now, what we know is that it's something incredible, like 70 or 80% of the jobs that you all are going to be in 10 years do not exist today. So think about that. If you want to stabilize your career, I remember in 2008, I would see these people coming out of finance and they would say, oh, I'm just going to wait out this recession again. And I just was thinking, no, this isn't coming back. They were waiting for finance to come back. And, I said, please, at the very least, look into fintech, look into some way to understand what you're good at and how to apply that to another. I had a client, beautiful example. She was in publishing and she had been in book publishing for years, 20 years. And she realized that it was declining. And so she finally realized, there's a place where the culture feels similar. I can do the similar kind of project management. And she ended up going to work for a major nonprofit, whether it was Save the Children or something else. But that was an example of her taking her experience and transferable skills and saying, I can do it in a lot of different places. Okay, so sign up for my newsletter, schedule an introductory session. Now, please email me. And when you email me, you can tell me a few things.
What we can do, Claire, is we can send you everyone's email and you can send out this.
Great.
I think I have everybody's email. I'm sorry, my contact fell out, so I don't know what I look like right now because I literally been trying to take out my contact.
You look great.
Great. There's one person that I can't get. I don't have their email. I messaged them, but everyone else, we have their emails. I'll send you that, and you can send them a package of materials
Good. I'll send the slides. I'll send those videos. I have videos about this like last bit. And then what was my last piece? Yes, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, also it's all in my book. So everything that I talk about is in the book. So if you want to find my book, Confidence at Work, it doesn't have such high sales yet that it pops up right away. But if you search for Claire Steichen, you can find it there.
Great. Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you for your time. Thank you everyone for joining us. I will send out, I will give you everyone's email. You can email the package of materials. And then folks, you can always email womenenergy@columbia.edu, womenenergy@columbia.edu for any questions about our work. But thank you so much, Claire. Thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a
Great
great
to meet
day.
you all.
Thank you so much.